have a fabulous business school. It has AACSB accreditation, so that also means it's excellent business school, one of the top ones in the world. And for one other I should really mention is creative arts. I mentioned that we teach that in Wellington, but we are number one in the Asia Pacific region, ranked by an organization called Red Dot. So that tells you how.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Coffee Chat with Adam. I have my coffee right over here. Okay, today I'm joined by Linda Oostenrijk from Massey University. Linda, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's great to be doing this with you. All's good here in New Zealand, so hello to everybody from New Zealand.
So again, today's another episode of Coffee Chat with Adam, and we're going to learn a lot about Massey University today. We're going to be talking about the faculties, location, ranking, and also teaching methodology, as well as learning about the living on campus, living off campus, and also some of the unique things about the university that you don't know about, and only Linda going to be sharing with us today. So stay tuned for a lot of things about the university today. So I'm just going to stop here and directly go through my questions with the very first simple question that I always like to ask. It is about knowing more about Linda. So Linda, could you please give us a quick introduction about yourself? I would like to know more about your position at the university and also some of the duties that come along with that position.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Linda, as Adam's already said, and my position at Massey University is International Recruitment Advisor. And I'm very lucky because I get to look after the Vietnam market. I've travelled to Vietnam, recruiting in Vietnam for quite a number of years now. Altogether, I've been working at Massey for 11 years with specific responsibility for Vietnam for about, I think it's probably 5 years now. And I do really love going to Vietnam, and I'm actually missing not being able to be there physically at the moment.
Yeah, it's been actually quite a strange year, like 2020. It stopped a lot of regular and normal things that we're so used to, and all of a sudden we all have to adapt to the new thing, the new as people call it. So thank you for sharing with us that information, and I think students are actually quite interested now to learn more about the university's history. So this actually comes directly with my second question, as I would like to know more about the university's background or some of the historical points that you would like to share with us about the university.
Well, Massey has a very long reputation. Initially, it started as a college for sciences. That was about 80 years ago. But since then it's expanded, and we teach far more than just science programs now. We teach business, humanities, creative arts, and health programs. So a great variety of choice. But Massey is also very unique because here in New Zealand we have 3 campuses in 3 different cities. We have a campus in Auckland, which is our biggest city, and we have a campus here in the city of Palmerston North, a smaller city. I'm based here in Palmerston North. That's about 1 hour flight south of Auckland. And then we have another campus in Wellington, and Wellington is the capital city of New Zealand. So when students come after they've studied the NCUK IFY and progress to Massey, you actually have a wide range of choice of subjects and different locations as well.
That provides the students with the option to choose where they want to actually stay when it comes to the campus choices. Linda, I just want to ask you something that's not really relevant to the university, but do you also get the question from students sometimes saying, Wellington is the capital of New Zealand? I thought it was Auckland.
Yeah. I think because Auckland is the biggest city, sometimes in people's minds they think, oh, that's the capital. But no, actually Wellington is the capital. But it's a common question. You know, it's not surprising to hear people think that.
Some other things I would like to know more about the university is related to, since you said you have multiple campuses, so there must have been a main campus first, or the original campus. So could you tell us more about the location of the main campus, as well as the ranking of different faculties, for example, or the ranking in New Zealand, as well as the teaching methodology that the university uses?
Sure. Yeah, well, the main campus, I guess, was Palmerston North, because that's where all those years ago we started as an institution. But Auckland, given it's our biggest city, that is now where most students prefer to study. So that in terms of our student numbers, in Auckland there are more students than in Palmerston North. But that's the history of the two campuses. And then Wellington is a much smaller campus. There we teach subjects like creative arts and communication. So that's a very niche kind of campus with specific programs on offer there. Our ranking, well, it's excellent news for students, because our ranking has actually increased, and according to the QS rankings, we're now number 272 in the whole world, and we've gone up 15 places. So you can see what a fabulous reputation Massey actually has. And then for some specific subjects, we're also highly regarded. I can tell you that if you come to study at Massey, you have a choice to study two programs that you cannot study at degree level anywhere else in New Zealand, and that's veterinary science and also aviation. So you can learn to be a vet, or you can learn to be a pilot here at Massey University. And it's not really that surprising, therefore, that for vet science, we are actually 28th in the world according to the QS rankings. So we're really highly regarded for vet. And we have an excellent vet school with fabulous facilities. That's here in Palmerston North, where I am based. For some other subjects, if I give you a few examples, like agriculture and forestry, we're ranked 29th in the world. That's because we've got a long history of teaching those type of subjects as well. And art and design in the top 100. Education, communication, media studies, top 150. And for accounting and finance and geography, top 200. So ranking is very important, isn't it, for students and parents? So that's why I'm so pleased to be able to share all those excellent rankings with you. We have a fabulous business school. It has AACSB accreditation, so that also means it's excellent business school, one of the top ones in the world. And for one other I should really mention is creative arts. I mentioned that we teach that in Wellington, but we are number one in the Asia Pacific region, ranked by an organisation called Red Dot. So that tells you how good we are at creative arts as well. And I think, Adam, you asked about the kind of teaching style?
Yes, that's correct. So what we look at there is either whether the university is more research-based or industry-focused. As a lot of the times I get this question, is like, am I going to do a lot of research-based, like coursework, or is it going to be more practical, like industry-focused? Well, it's a very applied, practical
style of teaching, which is great news for students at bachelor degree level particularly. They don't necessarily want a lot of concentration on research at that level of education, so our degrees are practical, applied, in nature. That means they get you ready, our students, for the workforce. And that's important for students, to take away a degree that will enable them to get good jobs and where they feel ready and got the skills to enter into a good job in the workforce.
It's actually quite good to know that that's the focus of the teaching, because the more I talk to students this year, the more I realize that there's a lot of focus on practical aspect of learning instead of like the traditional like theory based. A lot of students nowadays just be like, can I just be able to get this hands-on experience as I'm studying as well? Or there's a big focus on the industry, so when I finish or graduate, I'm able to work and have some sort of experience, because I think kids are now realizing that you need some school or some employers like have this requirement of 2 years prior work before you apply to their company, and they're seeking to kind of fill that in somehow while they're doing their bachelor's degree, and knowing that, for example, certain bachelor degrees could provide them with that opportunity through the practical experience, or also through the teaching methodology, that could kind of give them that requirement before they apply to the job market. It's good to know. Another thing that's good to know is the ranking, that the university is always going up and up, and this is actually great news. So we're expecting by the time students apply to the university in 2022, the university has gone even higher in ranking, that's for sure. Right. The next thing, or the next topic that I would like to get into, as you know, a lot of our audience who are watching this video today are going to be interested in studying the NCUK International Foundation Year. So they would like to know about the entry requirement for NCUK students, and we're looking at the subject streams as well as the language requirement.
Yeah, sure. Well, once a student has completed the IFY at NCUK, then they can come on to do any of our undergraduate degrees at Massey. So that would be business or humanities or creative arts or health or sciences. All a student would need is to have 3 C's in all 3 modules and a minimum C grade overall in the IFY English for academic purposes.
All right.
And our undergraduate degrees are usually 3 years, but some are 4 years if it's an honours degree.
Right. So actually, I think I would like to go more on the undergraduate degree, but just to say one more time. So it's a CCC for the subject streams, and the EAP score, the overall grade, has to be a C as well.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. Well, of course, they should aim for higher. That's the minimum requirement.
Yeah.
So make sure you aim higher. We want triple A's.
That would be even better.
Even better, yes. Agreed. So you mentioned that the duration for bachelor's degrees could vary from 3 to 4 years, depending whether it's an honors degree or it's just a bachelor's degree without honors. So if we're looking at the business, so Bachelor of Commerce, for example, what's the average duration?
Yeah, that's 3 years for a business degree. Also, our sciences are usually 3 years as well, apart from the VET degree. Right. As you'll appreciate, that's a 5-year degree. But humanities are normally 3 years as well, and creative arts, well, that can be 4 years, because we actually have a Bachelor of Design which is an honours degree, and that would be 4 years. And a Bachelor of Food Technology would be 4 years, and a Bachelor of Engineering would be 4 years, because they're all honours degrees. But the remainder are 3 years, and definitely the business ones are just 3 years of study.
Right. So it's a 3 years whether the student would like to choose double major or not. It's still going to be 3 years.
Yes, correct.
Right. Yeah. Do students have the option to do double degrees as well, or that's not an option?
They can choose like a major and a minor. Yes, with some subjects that can work quite well. So that is a possibility.
Okay, that's good to know. Because I think the reason why I asked this, because I come to realize nowadays is that there's a lot of students who have the pressure from parents to apply to a certain bachelor's degree, say in accounting, but then the student themselves have their own passion, probably in psychology or somewhere else in art. And so they ask me, like, indirectly, is like, what if I'm interested in another subject? Can I study that other subject as well? So it's good to know that they could do that by choosing like a minor, as you said.
Yeah.
And the duration is not going to change if they choose a minor.
No.
Right.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. This is good news because I'm actually quite interested in knowing more about double degrees as well this year, because last year I wasn't focusing as much on double degrees, but this year it seems to be students that are not pressuring me, but encouraging me to learn more about double degrees as well. Good to know there are options. I think the question that I always like to get more details of is the scholarships. So I know scholarships are quite interesting for many students, and especially if they're NCUK students. So are there any scholarships that are available at the moment for NCUK students? And if there are, what are those scholarships?
Sure. Well, we have a special scholarship for NCUK students in terms of accommodation here at Massey, when you're able to come study here and get a visa to come into the country. The Accommodation Scholarship has a value of 5,000 New Zealand dollars. So that's a good amount of money that will go towards what you should expect to pay for your total living expenses for 1 year would be 15,000 New Zealand dollars. So if you get an accommodation scholarship, then that 5,000 does go quite a good way towards paying for the 1 year total living costs. So that would be a saving. And then additionally, we also at Massey have our own scholarships for undergraduate students, and any NCUK student can apply for those. The value of that would be 10,000 New Zealand dollars for the first year of study, and then 5,000 New Zealand dollars for every subsequent year. So again, that's a great amount of money. To give you an idea of the average cost, the tuition fee for 1 year of a program, the bachelor degree level, it's approximately about 30,000 New Zealand dollars. So again, if you get the scholarship for $10,000, that's a third saving made in terms of tuition fee.
It's actually a very good scholarship. Is it? Are these scholarships all automatic, or do they have to submit an application? And how does it really work? Like, for example, for the Accreditation Scholarship, is it automatic?
Sure. No, there is an application form.
Right.
On our website we do advertise the scholarship, and there is an application form, and then how to apply. We give a lot of information about how to apply for that. Similarly, the other scholarships I mentioned that could go towards the tuition fee. All we need is, again, for a student to apply, quite a straightforward application process, but also have a reference from their school, from their teacher, from the NCUK centre. That would be fine. And we're looking for the best students. So I mentioned that we need 3 C's. and a C for the English for academic purposes. But if, like as we said before, Adam, if the students got A's, well, that's fantastic. They're in with a super chance for that scholarship because it's awarded on academic merit.
Right. Excuse me, I was just saying some water. Yes, that's actually quite good to know about, because competition is actually quite healthy and quite good for students, you know. And I know our Vietnamese students are always like, you know, I'm gonna try my best to get that scholarship. So knowing for a fact that they do increase their chances of getting a scholarship by working hard before they even go to the university gives them an even higher motivation to aim for that scholarship. So it's good to know, and good that you told me actually about it. And yeah, we can easily give them the you said a teacher reference?
Yes, a reference from their teacher from the NCUK Centre. Yeah,
that's easy for us to do, no problem.
Great.
All right. So I think what I would like to know more about in some more details is the aspect of work integrated learning. As we mentioned earlier, there is a focus on the practical side of learning as the students are studying. So are there any possibility for the student to do some form of work placement while they're studying, or any internship opportunities that are open for the student during summer holiday, for example, or even during their bachelor's degree time, like as part of the bachelor's degree, so they have to take 20 hours like as an internship, like a compulsory internship. But how does it work? How does the university integrate work with the learning?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's important to remember that all our programs are future focused. And New Zealand generally is almost, well, it is the best country in the world for getting students ready for the workforce in the way we teach. So that's really important. And a number of the Massey programs include internships. For example, the Bachelor of Food Technology, well, that has 200 hours of practicum, of an internship included in the program, in the 4-year program. The same with the Bachelor of Engineering. That also has a 200-hour internship included in those 4 years of study. And our vet science degree and our aviation degrees, well, they also are very practical and include, for example, if a student was doing the aviation program to learn to be a pilot, they would have 220 hours of flying time included in that degree. So we have our own little planes here at Massey University here in Palmerston North, and students get to practice and accrue flying time in those planes. And that, of course, gets them well on the way to be a pilot. Once they finish, they do need to get more hours under their belt, but they already have so many from Massey that they're a long way on the road to being a professional pilot.
Wow.
So yes, we do have those options at Massey with internships included.
Very good, very good. I was actually about to ask you when you mentioned about the aviation degree, and you mentioned 220 hours. I thought more about, in my mind, what came first was this simulation probably based learning, but then you said we have our own planes, and I was like, okay, now it's getting really real.
Yes, true. We have both the simulation and the planes, so we cover both grounds.
Nice. I think that sounds very exciting, to be honest with you. I think this is the first time I talk to a university about aviation related major, so I'm quite excited to learn more about it. But I think it's okay. We can go to the next question, and we can come back to the aviation once we have some time. What I think what's interesting nowadays is I start to realize, and I think you also start to come to realize, that students nowadays are more focused on, even when they're choosing a program, when they're in high school, they're focusing on what that program will lead them after they graduate from the program, which field they're going to be studying in, what company going to be accepting them as an employee. And that's becoming the focus for students. It's like, what happens after I graduate? Will I get support from the university? Am I going to get a job immediately as soon as I graduate? So it's becoming a concern, but also a big question for students to learn more about and would like to hear more about. So for example, would the students after they graduate receive enough support from the university? Does the university provide them with work fairs? So how does that work, and could you share more about that element there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, we do have career fairs on our campuses. That's an opportunity for our graduates to meet future employers. They're coming to our campus and they're looking for good students to employ. We also have a great careers office on each of our campuses, and they provide a lot of help and support to students as well, telling them, for example, how to get their CV ready, to have like mock interviews, so that they're prepared, because every country is different, the way interviews take place when you go for a job. So that's why it's important and helpful that we have experts, careers advisors, who can help and give some guidance to our students. Also here in New Zealand, after a student has finished their bachelor degree, they have the opportunity to stay on in New Zealand for 3 years on a post-study work visa. That lots of students like to take up that opportunity. Others do prefer to go home and get a good job back in their home country. But if they wish to, they can stay here for 3 years, find a job, and get that experience behind them of what it's like to work here in New Zealand, and that is helpful for them and looks great on their CV. If at the end of the 3 years they leave New Zealand and go to another country, that's excellent experience that they'll have.
Definitely. It does give like a lot of advantages to be working for example, in New Zealand in an international culture, and then taking that back home with you if they decide to go to Vietnam, for example. I think it's more valued, and they do have advantage versus the other students who decided to directly go back or immediately go back to Vietnam. And also not only that, but they also have the benefit of expanding their network even further while they're working in New Zealand, because nowadays network is even more important than before, especially with the age of technology. We're able to communicate like how we're doing today through Zoom, and that's incredible too for students to keep connected with their colleagues that they met in New Zealand, for example. So I'm really happy to hear about the career support that they could receive from the university. Great. I actually have 2 more questions, and then we have a final personal question. But the next 2 questions that are kind of integrated into one another, or connected in some sense. But what I would like to know more about is life on campus versus life off campus. Okay, so let's look at different aspects of living on campus, such as what are the benefits of staying on campus, such as for example, the accommodation, the prices, as well as access to the facilities, and versus living off campus, and how does it differ from if we put those on a comparison table, for example.
Both in Auckland and here in Palmerston North, we have a good range of accommodation on campus that students can choose. I think it's helpful for the first year of your study here in New Zealand to base yourself on campus. And the reason I say that is that helps you mix with other students, make friends really easily. It's also easier because we will arrange your accommodation before you arrive, so you don't need to worry about organising things for yourself in a new country. And then, of course, we also have that Accommodation Scholarship that I mentioned for NCUK students, and that's for accommodation on campus, our university managed accommodation. So certainly international students, usually in their first year, they prefer that option, and we'll organise it happily. The cost tends to be probably a bit less if you're staying in university accommodation as well. Then, for example, once you've done a year of your study and you've made great friends, at that stage it can happen that you prefer to get together with your friends and find accommodation for yourself off campus. And there's a lot of guidelines about that and guidance that we give students when they're looking for private accommodation as well. So you always well led by our accommodation offers, helped every step of the way, including if you're looking for private accommodation. Now, Auckland, I mentioned, our biggest city, so if you're staying off campus, around the campus in Auckland, it's great news for you because that's a very residential area. And it's in fact a beautiful area of Auckland. It's not in downtown Auckland City, but it's in a part of Auckland that we call the North Shore, which actually is quite an affluent area with many lovely beaches, and so you can imagine great lifestyle. So there's a choice of private accommodation quite close to the university because it is a residential area. And then Palmerston North here, well, this is a smaller city, really easy to get around. So if you're living off campus, you'll never be far away from campus. There's even a free bus service in this city. It's the only one in New Zealand. That bus service is free for students. So it's quite very, easy to navigate around this city. You could bike because it's quite flat. Wellington, well, that's a hillier city, but again, quite compact city. So you could walk from your accommodation if you lived in a flat in central Wellington. You could only be 15 minutes and you could walk or to the campus or get a bus even quicker. So there's always good public transport options as well, and that helps too if students prefer to be off campus.
I actually wanted to know about this because I recently received this question from students. It's like they ask me, what do Vietnamese students usually, if they decide, if they have the choice between off campus and on campus, what do you usually go for? On campus or off campus?
Bachelor degree students tend to be on campus. If a student was studying at a higher level for postgraduate, like masters, then they're usually off campus. And some of our master's students may have children too. So again, they get a little house for themselves as a family unit. Yeah.
So I think it's more about has to do with the age probably, and the preference as well as you tend to grow older, I guess. You're more independent and more for yourself. But it's good to know actually that there are options for students, for those who would like to stay with their flatmates, like in a private rented like apartment, or if they want to go on campus and have more access and easier access to the university, they can do that as well. But there are options. That's good to know. And it's actually good to know that there's also the free bus service, which I actually didn't know about. And I think that's a plus as well for students who want to stay in the city but still want to commute back to school. What about getting a driving license and getting a car? Is that also a thing that students usually do in school?
Yeah, they do, yes, because that's not too difficult a thing to do here in New Zealand. If you've got an international driving license, you can convert that and use that to here in New Zealand. So yes, some students do tend to have a car, and because a lot of people own cars here in New Zealand, it's a good way of getting around. We do have good public transport as well.
Mm.
But for example, the aviation students, they need to go a fair amount of their time to the airport. Here next to the airport we have Massey's planes, so it makes it easier for them if they can get a car. A second-hand one can be fairly cheap, not that expensive, so that gives them more flexibility, particularly for those aviation students, for example.
Yeah, you mentioned second-hand cars. I actually did get some information recently that they cost about between 7,000 to 11,000 New Zealand dollars. So it's actually quite good amount. It's not that expensive at all.
No, it's fairly affordable.
Yeah, I do agree. So I think, since we mentioned some money here with the cars, I think what I would like to know more about is the financial expenses, or the personal financial expenses that the student would have to think about, because I always get the questions like, how much money do I have to spend on a yearly basis? What kind of budget do I have to consider before traveling to the city? Because my parents ask me, how much should I start, or how much should I tell them that I'm going to be spending? And this is a question I think it's quite good to learn more about early on, so parents don't have to worry about their kids all of a sudden start spend a lot of money, so they have an idea in their mind. So what's the recommended I would say financial plan that you would give to the student or tell the student about?
Yeah, well, the average tuition fee per year would be about 30,000 New Zealand dollars. Some programs are less than that, and some are more. So let's take the average ballpark of 30,000 New Zealand dollars per year. That's for the tuition fee. Then the living expenses per year, that's about 15,000 New Zealand dollars. So for 1 year in total, it's going to be about 45,000 New Zealand dollars. And in fact, Immigration New Zealand, when you apply for your visa, you would need to show that you have funds to support yourself for the duration of your degree. So you don't need to pay all the fees up front for 3 years to Massey, but you do need to have the money and to be able to demonstrate to Immigration New Zealand for your visa that those funds are in a bank account, enough for your study and enough for your living expenses.
All right. Yeah, I think that's actually a good point there, and I think the amount that they have to show is about 15,000.
Yes, correct. Yeah, they do for their living expenses. Yeah.
Right. That's good to know about. Thank you for sharing with me. I think, actually, let me see if I have just one final question, because I see that we're kind of running out of time, so I don't want to take a lot of your time, Linda. But actually, it's not really a question, it's more of a personal advice. If you would like to, or what would you like to tell our students who are watching the episode today, let's say before they decide to apply to university, and also when they come to Massey University, what kind of advice would you like to give our students?
Well, Massey has such a good quality education system with excellent range of programs, so I'm sure we'd have an option for you, for the students, no matter what your interest is. And over and above that, being a student here in New Zealand, experiencing the way of life here is hugely beneficial. Our lecturers are really informal. They're very engaging. You needn't feel worried about the lecturers or how they may be, because we just call them by their first name. You don't have to say professor or even their last name. It's a very informal style of teaching, both academically very good, but you'll feel comfortable here in New Zealand studying at Massey University, and it's an experience you'd never forget. So I think it's something you should seriously think about, and I think you'd enjoy it very much.
Agreed. So I would personally, I think what you said there is easy to understand, and also a great encouragement for students to just get out of their comfort zone to experience and explore, the life where they're going to be living for the next 3 years, possibly 6 years if they decide to stay and work in the city as well. So thank you very much for sharing it with us. I think it's a great advice. And I actually don't have any more questions. Probably I have one kind of like very quiet, irrelevant question, but I'd like to kind of ask and just get some details about. And it's I always hear about how small the population of New Zealand is, but at the same time I also hear about how large is the population of sheep.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd like to know about is it true?
Yeah, it is true. We do have more sheep than people. Yeah, we do. That is very true. New Zealand is a big export nation. So although we have a small population, I think in world terms, we're quite well known, because if you go to your supermarket in any country, you'll find New Zealand produce, including, sheep and agricultural products as well. So we're quite famous for many different reasons, but that's one of them.
Yeah. Well, of course, that's not the only thing that New Zealand is famous for, but it's something that I always wanted to ask, so thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, that's all right.
Anyways, so I actually, again, I don't have any more questions, so I just wanted to say thank you, Linda, for being here today and for telling us more about Massey University and sharing with us a lot of details about studying and living in New Zealand. I think it's incredible to learn about that. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you too, Adam. It was great to have this chat with you and pass on as much information as I could to students. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you too. So I think it's a good time for us to end the episode here. So thanks everybody for watching the episode today, and we're going to be having more episodes rolling in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned for those. And with that said, I'm just going to say thank you again. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.